Hello and welcome to LSR here in Group 2 for round number 11 here at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. Hope you've been having a wonderful day wherever you are, and thank you, of course, as always, for joining us this fine either afternoon or evening or even morning, depending on where you might be watching this and when. But yeah, round 11 here in Group 2 at the Austrian Grand Prix. I'm vacant. And I'm happy to be hosting here today. But 14 drivers right now lining up on the grid, which should hopefully be getting 3 more drivers throughout qualifying here today. So hoping to see 17 drivers out on track as we see Husky making his way into Sector 3 now on his outlap. We'll see the Dutchman. We'll stay on board with the Dutchman as he looks to set the first lap of this qualifying session. We do one long qualifying session if you are new to LSR, as Husky invalidates there, but I believe he should be able to still start his lap as he will. Up the hill into Turn 1 now. Definitely one of the easier places to invalidate. Runs a little bit wide, and there it is, just over that curb, and invalidates quickly. So he'll have to go for another lap, as well as stay out of the way of a couple cars behind him. This T34FR will be the next to do it. As he goes up through Turn 1 very nicely, and has the run down the second of 3 DRS zone straights on this circuit. Up the hill, hard braking down into Turn 3. Very easy to get a little bit wide there and screw it up on that sausage curb, as we saw from T34. Yellow flags down there in Sector 1. That looks like an Aston Martin spun out. We'll stay on board with T34 after that big mistake at the exit of Turn 3. Now to Turn 4. Very important to get good traction out of here. Should be seeing a lot of overtakes down into Turn 4 and making it stick through this double left-hander that ends Sector 2 and begins Sector 3. The AlphaTauri going to be looking to make up for as much lost time as possible after that mistake back at Turn 3. Comes through the final couple of corners now. Very easy to run a little bit wide and invalidate. The AlphaTauri through very cleanly as we have a McLaren spun out, and all the drivers will be chasing a 107.9. As you see James spinning out there in Sector 2 as Viperize goes to the top with a 106.9. Next to the line, I believe, will be Dodaligo, who goes even faster with a 106.1. It looks like a Red Bull next of Crooner will be starting his lap. Let's see, there is, I believe, the Williams of Formula Jonah as well, starting his. James, 4 for 3 after the spin earlier, finishing his lap. Duncan on an out lap. I believe the next to cross the line, the time will be Speedy Gunner. No, it will not. He invalidated, so he'll just be setting a lap after spinning out earlier. Bamboo Vegas on an out lap. And just to give you a quick little insight into the drivers' standings as we come here into round number 11, it is Crooner in the Red Bull, well clear currently of Elgem. So about 50 points separates Crooner from Elgem at the top. Elgem is then in a very tight battle with Bamboo Vegas and Formula Jonah, as we see Bamboo Vegas coming through here in that Haas car. Down through this final DRS zone, looking at speeds probably approaching about 190 to 195 miles an hour in race conditions, as the championship leader goes to the top with a 105.476. Very solid time from the Red Bull. So let's see if Bamboo Vegas can fight back. Purple in those first 2 sectors. James has to quickly get out of the way after being slow. Thankfully, ghosting is on, so that's not too big of a worry. Through the final couple of corners now comes the Haas, able to keep it neat and tidy through that last little bit of the track, and now comes to the line and goes to the top up with a 105.3. So it's currently Bamboo Vegas from Crooner and Formula Jonah at the top, as we can see an Alfa Romeo facing the wrong way out of Turn 1. I believe that is Speedy Gunner. Aston Martin slowing down to let some cars through. Husky as well, I believe, on an in-lap now after sitting 5th with a very respectable 106.2. Let's see, is there anybody else on a lap? I believe Xerxity, he is on an out lap, so he should be going back around, but Elgem comes to the line in the Mercedes to set a 106.1 and leapfrogs Husky up into 5th position. So how far up can the Mercedes, who's currently in 2nd place in the championship, potentially go up the order? So starting 5th as of right now is that Mercedes car. Still haven't seen anybody that we're missing be able to join yet, so hopefully we can get those other couple of drivers in here. It'd certainly be a shame if they can miss out here at the Austrian Grand Prix. It looks like Jim111, who I believe this is his debut for Haas, comes to the line, and he will go 6th fastest with a 106.216, just ahead of Husky 13. So very, very solid times. A number of invalidations and mistakes early on in this qualifying session as we approach 11 minutes to go, as Xerxity goes 5th fastest for Red Bull. So it's currently a Red Bull 2.5 and a Haas 1.7 are the two starting positions to give a look really quickly. So those teams going to be looking to do very nicely, but once again, it's Bamboo Vegas and Crooner up at the front, as it has seemed to be for a lot of the season, at least when I've been lucky enough to be commentating, as we see Viperize come to the line again, and that is he did not go quicker, potentially just starting his lap now, so we'll ride on board with the Alpine car. He powers up through what's technically turn 2 with the MotoGP course, but is turn 3 for our purposes, and he's already a 10th up on his first time as he powers down the hill out of turn 3, a very important traction zone, and a lot of time can be made up or lost down through turn 3, that very hard braking zone that ends sector 1. So the Alpine going to be looking to move up the order. Viperize currently sitting 12th in the driver's standings on 25 points, so going to be looking to pick up some very, very important points in the midfield battle, because Boring in 5th place is on 54, so just a couple of points could very much swing this championship open, as we see more drivers coming out now for their second push laps. This Viperize now comes out of that final corner and to the line, and he will go 4th fastest, so a very solid time from the Alpine driver after a bit of a slower first lap. And now can he go quicker is going to be the question, as we have Omega gonna bust for the McLaren team joining us. So good to see him in here. His teammate James must have invalidated out of that final corner on his out lap, meaning that he could not set another lap. As it looks like all but 3 or 4 cars out on track at the moment. It'll be an AlphaTauri up leading them out at the front. Let me find it. That is T34. So currently the last of the time setters as he starts his lap here through turn 1. Again, just got to be really careful because there's that big sausage curb on the inside. The car gets super light over that crest, and you got to be really careful about the sausage curb on the outside too, as T34 matches his first sector time a little bit slower. Brief little kiss on that outside sausage curb of turn 3 before getting back on the power and blasting down this back DRS zone. It looks like either Crooner or Xerxity in the background, potentially getting a little bit of a tow from the AlphaTauri driver. So even if they aren't teams currently, looks like a little bit of teamwork potentially going on, even if it's a little inadvertent, as we make our way now into Sector 3. Very nice and tidy from the AlphaTauri. It's a yellow flag that it looks like a Haas going slowly, just yielding to other cars. This T34 through what I believe are turns 10 and 11, and he will pull into the pit lanes, which is rather surprising. So let's see, it is Crooner now coming to the line. He was 3/10 up through the first 2 sectors, and he will not improve in the final sector. So he ended up going a little bit slower overall, which is a big surprise. Elgem jumps up into 3rd with a 105.5. And could LGem and the Mercedes be in the mix now for pole after that lap time? Alexis Beast in the second AlphaTauri, currently sitting 15th after not having a time after his first run with a 105.7, puts himself up into 4th position. Taking a look at the timing screens, looks like the Aston Martin of Dodaligo and the Haas of Bamboo Vegas, who's currently your provisional pole sitter, very close together, as the Aston Martin seemingly going to give way for the two. Sitting on board the pole sitter, very much down on that first lap time, so he's pretty much going to have to abort that. Yellow flags all over the place right now, as we'll be on board with the Alfa Romeo of a Speedy Gunner as he comes up in turn 3. A little bit up on that first time, and very nice and tidy through turn 3. Should set himself up nicely to get now on the power and blast down. Of course, Speedy Gunner, I believe, being a Group 2 driver, but also in Group 1, so certainly has some very solid pace and is going to be looking to jump up from that P12. There's only about a second moves the field, and he's 3/10 up already on this lap after putting in a seemingly purple middle sector. I don't know if that's a game bug or not, but certainly very, very, Alfa Romeo looking very comfortable around this lap as James puts in a 106.8. A Speedy Gunner now to the line, and he will jump up into 5th place. So very solid from him. The Aston Martin of Dodaligo looks to be potentially starting another lap for Aston Martin. So he'll be somebody to watch out for, as the Haas and Aston Martin giving way just before those final couple of corners to those on quicker laps. James 443 on an out lap. It's his teammate Omega just starting his lap. Omega is obviously joining us a little bit later, but certainly glad that he could join us as we approach about just under 5 minutes and 20 seconds left to go in this qualifying session here around Austria. So it's currently Bamboo Vegas on provisional pole from Kruner, the championship leader, and LGem in second. Alexis Beast is there in 4th with Speedy Gunner in 5th. Formula Jonah as well, sitting there in 6th and could be pressuring to move up the field. Of course, Jonah is currently sitting 4th in the drivers as Speedy Gunner is out of this qualifying session. Looks like he had an incident at the pit lane entry. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. Let me see if I can jump on the board with the Aston Martin as we come around. I'm not quite going to be able to see it, but that is it for Speedy Gunner. So his qualifying session is over after potentially a crash at the pit lane entry, potentially similar to how we saw Dodaligo run a little bit wide right there. We've got the Red Bull of Xercity looking to jump up maybe a little bit closer to his teammate of Kruner to potentially combat Bamboo Vegas in that Haas car, but he will not be able to do it on this lap, as with that invalidation. Duncan, meanwhile, seems to be on an outlap of his own, either that on low fuel mode. No, he certainly not on low fuel, so potentially just doing what he can to get those tires nice and warmed up. He's got that AlphaTauri coming up behind him with speed, and he'll let him go by, and that's Alexis Beast, currently sitting in 4th. Very comfortable through that first little bit of the track, as Speedy Gunner in chat just saying that he died, so I'll take that as a little bit of a fatal error, potentially into the pit lane. Certainly going to be frustrating, but that 105.8 is certainly going to be rather competitive on this grid, as it seems. Of course, still going to have one more run to go, as Alexis Beast up 2/10 through that second sector. So can he keep it clean through these final 2 corners and potentially jump up the grid and challenge up at the front? And he will not. He's diving into the pit lane. Very surprising from Alexis Beast, as it looked like he was up significantly on his lap time. Potentially a mistake that he saw that we didn't was the cause of that. But I'm very surprised by that, because it looked like that AlphaTauri was very rapid throughout that bit of the lap, as Duncan will seemingly be the first to set his final lap time of qualifying for Aston Martin. His teammate Joe DeLigo currently sits P8. Could Duncan potentially jump him and get up into a good position to potentially start, at bare minimum, in the point-scoring positions? So we'll stay on board with him as Husky, 13, currently sitting P4 in that Ferrari, just starts his lap, so we'll jump to him next. But Duncan fairly clean now through turn 4, as he's going to be coming up to a slightly slower moving Haas car, who should hopefully get out of the way or just keep on pushing at this point. As Viperize having a glitch in the pits. So can Viperize not get out? The pits are jammed. Oh no, the pits are jammed as there's some sort of issue there. So drivers are not able to get out. So I don't know what we're going to have to do here. I don't know if we're taking qualifying at this stage, but there are all of the cars that you can see in the pit lane are trapped there. As it looks, there's the Red Bull just stopped at the pit lane entrance, and so nobody can get out. So I don't know what the rule will be here, but that's certainly something that I haven't seen before. I believe it's Xercity at the front who may need to leave, but I'm not sure if he wants to. It's certainly a Red Bull up at the front and with a Red Bull at the back. But certainly if we're continuing, this could be very fortunate for these other drivers, because it seems that they may not have any competition throughout the rest of this lap. As we have as we watch Formula Jonah, he's slowing. He has ERS turned off. As we have Omega looking to potentially set a quicker lap, as he sits there with a 106.4. The Ferrari of Husky 13, I believe, he comes to the line, and he may be starting now, but 30 seconds left, which means that there will only be 4 drivers out on track who will be able to improve. As I like to phrase it, the game EA'd itself, which means that only 4 of our 15 drivers have been able to come out on track late in this qualifying session to be able to set times. Again, I don't know what caused that, but if you want to get a look at exactly what's going on track, here it is. And that is it for qualifying. So all those drivers are out. Formula Jonah comes to the line. He will stay 8th. Omega will stay 6th. Husky will be the last one to come around. He's a half second down through 2 sectors, and he'll be the last to cross the line in this qualifying session. Can he grab potentially 1 or more positions in these final couple of sectors? He will not, as he shuts off his ERS there, but certainly very strange from the game here, as Husky will pull alongside, I believe, just to get a look into that pit lane to figure out what the heck is going on in that pit lane. But it seems that a glitch for one of those Red Bulls has just led to the entire pit lane stacking up, and has led to nobody being able to improve on their lap times. So hopefully the actual race itself will be a little bit less glitchy, but it will be Bamboo Vegas starting on pole for Haas. So congratulations to Vegas. As Viper's comments, not a day without a glitch in this, I'm assuming, game. But yeah, I suppose that's what you get with EA sometimes. But it's Bamboo Vegas and for Haas, for Crooner, followed by L-Gem, Husky, Alexis Beast, Speedy Gunner, Viperize, Formula Jonah, and Dodoligo. Jim then in 10th on his debut, and Xercity in 11th, with Duncan in 12th, Omega for McLaren in 13th, T34 in 14th, and James 443 in 15th. So the entire field separated by 1.5 seconds, which certainly doesn't seem like a ton of time, but I think is certainly a tighter spread than we saw yesterday in Group 1. I definitely recommend going and giving that race a watch if you haven't had the chance to already. Of course, commentated by 2 members of this Group 2 race, James, or I believe 2 members of this Group 2 race, because I believe James is here today, as well as Formula Jonah, so definitely worth a watch. And that was Group 1, Round 12, I believe won by LFR Patham. So certainly, and that is our faster tier, but certainly going to, hopefully, be just as interesting of a race here today. I believe we will have formation lap turned on to test here. So hopefully we don't get any more glitches with that. But yeah, if you're interested in potentially joining LSR, go ahead and be sure to throw a comment down below, and we'll be sure to hit you up with a Discord link. We do race on Saturdays and Sundays at this time, just about every week, but we do have off weeks from time to time as we get underway for the formation lap. As Speedy Gunner disqualified from the formation lap after spinning and potentially just facing the wrong way, so his tires will be ice cold. So a big mistake from the Alfa Romeo as we get underway, as Omega and Zercity potentially with contact, and they're disqualified now. So that's 3 cars that are out, that are not able to partake in this formation lap and get their tires warmed up. But we see Bamboo Vegas here coming through Sector 2. Of course, Crooner, the championship leader for that Red Bull in P2. We take a look at the predicted pit stop strategy from AWS. For those starting on the mediums, looks like it's going to be an easy one-stop medium to hard. As let's see if we pull up the tires as it stands. So everybody on mediums, with the exception of Dodaligo and Duncan, who elect to start on hards, as Speedy Gunner has left the session as a whole. So that might be due to internet problems, but hopefully he can get back here and partake in this race as we come here through these final couple of corners. So that's going to be, it will still be the Haas leading the way, as all now 12 of these drivers will come to take their grid spots, as 3 will not be able to after having some sort of an issue early on. But we're probably looking at a number of one-stops here today, so we can see the drivers all fanning out a little bit to get to their grid spots, weaving back and forth in the back there, so navigating those cars in front. So let's see if anybody... So let's see, very aggressive from Husky there in P4. Look at that Ferrari and how skewed it is to the inside, as Elgin is disqualified for going too far, as was somebody else, and James as well. But taking a look here, as we get ready to go, we have 5 lights, and we are underway here in LSR for the Austrian Grand Prix. A slow start for the Ferrari behind, but it seems to be a decent start for Bamboo Vegas and Crooner up at the front. The Red Bull looking to the inside, but it seems fairly clean, and that really skewed start for Husky has not worked out as he continues to fall down the order. But it's Bamboo Vegas up at the front that continues to lead the way. Alexis Peak looking around the outside of Crooner as we come now down into turn number 3. The Red Bull able to defend and looking for the switchback, and that's an Alpine spun out, potentially with contact with the Alfa Romeo out of turn 3. Or no, that's Formula Jonah, and there's chaos behind. There's about 6 cars super close together. The McLaren of James and the Red Bull of Zercity both taking to grass on opposite sides of the track as Alexis Beast and Crooner battle side by side. The Alpha Tauri looking around the outside and making that move stick as we get to this latter part of Sector 2 and moves up into second place. T30 Ace. So it's Bamboo Vegas starting on pole, leading after lap 1, and we already have a bit of a 3-pack race going as Bamboo Vegas a little bit wide and twitchy here early on. A little bit wide there, and potentially going to already have a track limits warning. We look back the order a little bit. It looks like a Haas of Jim looking to the inside of Speedy Gunner, and is going to make that move stick on the ghosted car. Of course, we saw Speedy Gunner be able to get back, so hopefully he can take control shortly and try to recover at least a little bit. Looking back a little bit, it's Duncan leading the second pack, as it looks like the McLaren looking to the outside, as Jim also is able to make a move stick on Omega, who gets a slightly worse run. Omega potentially looking to get a fight back as they run through the hill. Omega, that rear light already flashing, and it's the McLaren looking down the inside, but the Haas able to defend 4 now, and is going to have that better traction on the outside line. The McLaren still not giving an inch, though, as James overtakes Dodaligo. Back there, a little bit of contact between the 2 cars, and here comes Viperize on the scene, and it's 3 cars, and there's a spun-out car. That is Alexis Beast, who has spun out. He was in second and had a mistake there later in Sector 3, and is now plummeting down the order. He's in 9th and now 10th position, and is going to have the McLaren on his inside as they come through here. They're going to keep it clean enough through these final couple of corners, but a big mistake from the AlphaTauri driver who showed some serious pace, as we now have just gotten DRS enabled, as Husky, starting in P4, tried that really aggressive orientation at the starting grid that just has not worked out for him, as he is really struggling early on, as Omega looks around the outside of Jim, and there's contact between the Alpine and the Haas that leads to contact between the Haas and the McLaren. So is there any front wing damage for Viperize? It doesn't look like it, but certainly very shady. And a very scary couple of seconds as the Haas looks to the inside, and there's chaos now. Jim with a super late attempt to get around Omega and just goes right into the back of him. So already, now it's just the 3-horse race up at the front, and then there seems to be just chaos going on behind with tons of contact all over the place, and I'm curious as to if the front wings of any of these cars are potentially damaged. As we can see Speedy Gunner's Ghost looking to the inside of Viperize, but it's not going to make this move stick, as hopefully Speedy Gunner can rejoin now as we begin lap number 4, but it's Bamboo Vegas, the pole sitter, at the front. Crooner just behind in DRS with L-Gem certainly right there, as Xerxity and Speedy Gunner going at it. Xerxity able to overtake that ghosted car, as Dodoligo and Duncan, the 2 Aston Martins, both on that same hard tire strategy, battling up now into turn 3, and there's 2x2 between T34 and Husky behind, as that Dodoligo goes a little bit deeper, Husky gets pushed a little bit wide, and it's going to be 3 wide as we come down this back straight. There's Husky there and Formula Jonah, and as they run down this back straight, it seems that everybody's going to hold station. Husky potentially looking to that inside as James overtakes the Speedy Gunner, who has been able to rejoin. As you can see that car is no longer ghosted. So hopefully he can get up to speed very quickly enough, as it's about 9/10 of a second gap up at the front. But certainly a number of close battles. You can see that Alfa Romeo peeking to the inside as Xerxity closing up onto the back of Viperize, as we come now into the DRS zone to start lap number 5 for them. But Bamboo Vegas not quite able to break DRS with Crooner, as I believe that's Formula Jonah who has spun out. Did he go into the wall, or was that just a spin on a potential overtake on Husky potentially, as Alexis Beast is the first to receive a 3-second time penalty for track limits. Expect that not to be the last time we see that message pop up on screen during the course of this race, as it's very easy to get a quick track limits penalty as you're battling with somebody. But Omega, currently sitting in P4, is currently the conductor of this DRS train here on lap number 5 here at Austria. Looking to keep it nice and clean as James and Xerxity battle, and James looks to be able to make the move stick as they battle side by side here through this double left-hander. That Red Bull certainly not giving up on this move. There's contact side pod to side pod, and the Red Bull goes round. And he's in the gravel, so he'll drop right down the order, so certainly going to be frustrating for Xerxity, as Alexis Beast as well, with another spin. Of course, sitting second after having a nice opening lap move early, as James as well. Did James go round? James did go round, so that's 3 spins in about as many corners that we have seen. So that Red Bull of Xerxity potentially struggling with tire heat now, as he was struggling to get back going, but he'll be back at the back of the order now, and is going to have a big recovery drive ahead of him if he wants to get up into the points. But it's currently Bamboo Vegas and Crooner currently running the show. Up here at the front is yellow flags, and that's Xerxity again, I think just really struggling with overheated rear tires potentially. Or potentially even some rear wing damage, as we see T34 and Duncan go at it down into turn 4, and it's T34 able to hold that position, get out ahead, and not need to defend through this part of the circuit. But very nicely for him, as Duncan is going to have to be wary of Husky 13 behind, as could he be looking to the inside here through these final couple of corners. Hello, Mango. How are you today? Hope you're doing well. But you certainly missed a fairly eventful first couple of laps here at Austria, certainly similar to yesterday in Group 1 with a little bit of mistakes and potentially incidents scattered throughout, but it's Bamboo Vegas in the Haas as Xerxity once again spinning. That's who that yellow flag is for. As T34 seems to have gotten a really poor exit out of turn 1. He's lost a couple of positions. Omega and Jim battling side by side as they come out of turn 3. And it's the Haas with DRS, but I believe that McLaren just with enough, with a lot less rear wing and a lot more ERS, is just going to have a lot better opportunity to make that or to make that defense rather stick. So it's Omega continuing to conduct this DRS train, even as it's kind of broken up a little bit, as it's gone to Omega, Jim, and Viperizer at the front, as James and Duncan now switching places. A little bit of contact between the Aston Martin and the McLaren, but it's James able to make the move stick and is now able to potentially go chasing off after Husky, but the Aston Martin not done yet, potentially looking to the inside now. Out into turn number 10, but not quite going to have enough time to make a move right there, and is going to have to settle to tuck into that DRS and potentially make a move on the McLaren car through those 3 DRS straights. Taking a look back here at this 3-way battle for 4th place, as Bamboo Vegas and Crooner are separated by about half a second up at the front, but it's 1/10 now between Jim and Omega as this battle continues to rage. The Haas now looking to the inside, very low. He's very low on that battery percentage, 0%, as he gets pinched to the inside by Omega, and has to go very tight. So Omega is going to be looking to make all the use of the traction around the outside at turn number 4, and is going to be able to defend that 4th place position. He's been defending for most of this race, of course. So certainly very interesting there, as we're already coming up to Xerxity, who I think must be struggling with some sort of rear wing damage after a couple of incidents and spins. So looking back to Crooner there, it's only 6/10 separates these 2 leaders, and then you have L-Jim in 3rd, just kind of doing his thing and sitting there, as Husky is the 2nd driver now, and as well as James, to receive a penalty, and that's a yellow flag for Xerxity, yielding to the 2 leaders as they make their way now down this final DRS straight of the lap. Just because I consider that pit straight to be the first one. But it's certainly Bamboo Vegas who's looked to control this race from the start and will definitely look to continue to do that, as Alexis Beast and I believe T34 swap places down in turn 4. So certainly hoping to not have an AlphaTauri civil war there. But they're going to be looking to climb up into the points. Of course, they have to catch James in order to be able to do that, which is certainly possible by the end of this race, as we have James and Husky super close together. The Briton in the McLaren and the Dutchman in the Ferrari, and be looking to go at it and hopefully score some points respectively and be able to pull away potentially from Duncan and now T34 after Alexis Beast receives a 3-second time penalty. But looking up at the front, it's Bamboo Vegas and Crooner. Of course, the pit lane looking to open in the next 5 or 6 laps. A little bit wide from the Haas there, which is going to allow Crooner to make up some time very nicely. It's about 2/10 there. But Bamboo Vegas also able to get some nice, as Jim looks around the outside of Omega, not quite able to make the move stick. He's going to stick with him, though, and as we have 3 cars about nose to tail now, this Haas now coming down into this hard braking zone, and it's the McLaren continuing to defend from Jim and Viperize behind him here in 4th, as James and Husky swap places down into turn 4, as the McLaren able to overtake the Ferrari very nicely, and they can go chasing after Dodaligo and Speedy Gunner. But certainly as the pack's starting to spread out at least a little bit, but it's still Bamboo Vegas leading from Crooner. Take a look quickly at position changes. So big winners, Omega's in that McLaren up 9 places off the start. Jim as well up 5, James up 6, so a really good day for McLaren. Husky, after going for a really aggressive orientation on the starting grid, pointing way to the outside of the track, just was not able to make the start work and has dropped 6 positions. Alexis Beast, after some spins and issues, has dropped 7, and then Formula Jonah and Xerxity have dropped 6 and 4 respectively. So certainly going to be looking to make amends for that throughout the course of this race. Of course, a safety car at this point could change everything up, as Alexis Beast looks to overtake around the outside of Duncan, but goes a little bit wide and gets up on that sausage curb, and of course doesn't have DRS because that detection point is just about at the braking point for turn 4. So if you get the overtake done before then you have to defend against a driver with DRS, as Alexis Beast will be re-overtaken by Duncan around the outside, but is not done yet. Looks to the inside now through this double left-hander. But 11th place will be Duncan's, as he will be able to make that defense work. Taking a look now as we begin lap number 12. Not a lot of time now separating Bamboo Vegas and Crooner. Of course, Bamboo Vegas not having to defend all too much early on in this race. And of course, thank you. Welcome if you are joining us. Welcome to Group 2 here in LSR, here at Austria in round 11. Be sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're new to LSR, be sure to go ahead and throw a comment in there, and be happy to send you a link to our Discord where you can potentially sign up and take place in this racing in the future, because we definitely love to have you. We'd love to see full 20-car grids for every race, as we see Jim and Omega going at it again into turn 4. The Haas once again looking now around the outside as they go side by side now on the exit, and it's the Haas finally able to overtake Omega for the moment, as that McLaren around the outside, that car was well behind and is able to make that move stick very beautifully around the outside to re-overtake that Haas and retake his P4, and now Jim will have to defend from Viper Eyes a little bit as this lap continues, but that was a great move from the McLaren car down there at that double left-hander. So great move from Omega, as he's going to have to continue to defend. Half a second now the gap between Bamboo Vegas and Crooner as we continue to approach the pit window, but a big switch out of that Haas car. Certainly not close enough. Taking a look at ERS. ERS is heavily in Crooner's favor, as Jim now down the inside as Dodoligo and Speedy Gunner continue to battle. Jim is going to look to force that McLaren to the outside of the track. Of course, he doesn't have DRS now, so the McLaren and the Alpine will be able to fight back. James is over to overtake Dodoligo towards the back as James, Dodoligo, and Speedy Gunner going at it. Speedy Gunner looks to the inside, nice and clean through there as they run side by side. Jim and Omega up ahead. It's the Haas looking to the inside now, as the McLaren still able to defend. So great defensive moves from the McLaren car, as James, I believe, just overtook Speedy Gunner and Dodoligo, and as they continue to fight, Husky is going to be right there and in the fight for P8. So battles going up and down the grid. It seems that those hard tires could be coming into it for Dodoligo as the laps continue to tick on, but 3/10 the gap separating now up at the front. It's about a quarter of a second. As you can see, that Red Bull kind of poking in at the background as we come into this final DRS zone, as Speedy Gunner is the next to receive a 3-second time penalty. Jim is going to look up the inside of Omega once again, and that move is going to be able to stick, but is he going to be able to hold position as a little bit of contact between the McLaren and the Haas as they come out at the exit of turn 4? Will the Haas be able to defend this time? Lights flashing at the back of both cars as Omega looks down the inside once again. A little bit of a banging of wheels there as Omega once again able to retake that 4th position. And here, as you can see, from about P4 all the way back to, I want to say, P10 is not separated by much. It's those 3 really at the front, and then P4 through P10 are all kind of coming together in this one train once again, as Xercity will dive into the pit lane. So that should tell you that we're about in the pit window. So strategy calls are going to very much start coming into play now, as Xercity will throw on inters. I think that's pretty much just a sign that he's plans to retire. Luckily with Ghostwing on, it's not going to be that much of an issue. If he does go back out, where Bamboo Vegas has been able to stretch that gap to Crooner a little bit, as, I was unaware of this, but it has started to drizzle with rain. So that's another thing to know now. So all these drivers are going to have to be really careful and now start tiptoeing around the rest of this lap as Jim and Omega battle side by side. Once again into turn 4, it's the McLaren on the outside, able to defend again. But this is news to me. I did not know we were expecting changeable conditions here. But Xercity on inters, I thought it was a sign he was giving up. I don't think that is not the case.
That is the call to switch inters now to get ahead of the curve. So this could throw the race wide open, as it seems that Speedy Gunner and Husky having a big battle there at the back. And it's nose to tail through these final couple of corners. The Alpine a little bit wide, the McLaren looking to the inside. All right, they're it's side by side between James and Dodoligo as they run up the hill into turn 1. Gonna have to be very careful as Dodoligo looks up the inside of the Alpine, and the Alpine is spun. Dodoligo and Viperize make contact. The Alfa Romeo spins as he goes wide. Oh, what a mess. And it's Husky, one of the big gainers here. Jim and Omega battling again. And it's Omega looking for the cutback. But can Jim finally make this move stick? He's got a bit of a bigger gap this time round as Dodoligo and Husky is spun on the exit of turn 4. So the track conditions getting very treacherous as Husky was one of the big gainers up at that point early on and has now lost loads of positions and has fallen all the way to P13. But how close are we getting to this changeover point? Because clearly these track conditions are getting tougher and tougher to drive, but the leaders have elected to stay out. It looks like the one McLaren of Omega is going to choose to come in this lap for intermediates. He will. So it's going to be very important to see where he goes with this. I believe he's trying to go to inters now, as opposed to too late, as we saw him pull off. So can all these other cars hold their laps, as Omega has put on those intermediate tires as Formula Jonah receives a time penalty. Husky 13 into the pits, I believe, potentially 4 inters and a new front wing. But a lot of changing up and down the grid. I believe that's T34 with a spin back at turn number 1, as I believe James had a big incident in his chasing of Jim, which is certainly going to be confusing to tell them apart from time to time, because James and Jim can come off the tongue really similarly, but that's beside the point. Duncan and Speedy Gunner in a fairly close battle. The Alfa Romeo looking to the inside of the hard tire car, and he goes very deep, and he runs very wide, and is into the grass. That was very close to being a big incident. As Yellow Flag in Sector 3, that's Bamboo Vegas spinning on the entrance to the pit lane, it seems. So was he pulling into the pits and potentially just spun it out? That's unsure, but that's going to lose him a load of time, as he's going to come in for a set of intermediate tires as the rain continues to fall here in Austria. So it's Kruner currently leading the way. It's Bamboo Vegas putting on hard tires. Oh no! Bamboo Vegas putting on hard tires as DRS is now disabled. Did he forget to set intermediates? So the leader of this race for so many laps, potentially setting hard tires at the worst possible time, as we see a number of cars coming in to fit intermediates. Just taking a look here to see what Formula Jonah puts on, that should tell you, and Formula Jonah is putting on intermediates. So that shows that potentially was a massive mistake from Bamboo Vegas, unless he feels he can make those hard tires work just enough in light enough rain conditions to be able to pull this off. So let's see what Kruner does now. Will he pull into the pit lane? He chooses to stay out for another lap on these medium tires. So could he be looking potentially at a medium soft stint, as Elgin picking up a lot of time on the Red Bull driver through those last couple of corners. As yellow flags there, I believe that's a Lexus Beast again, spin with another spin. So these track conditions are becoming harder and harder to deal with. As yellow flag in Sector 3 is gone. That was just the last of the pop-up. As yellow flags, I believe that's Viperize. Is that Viperize round? That is Viperize round. So he was sitting in that battle with Jim and Omega for a number of laps, and now he's really struggling as the track conditions continue to take a turn for the worse. As James and Jim battle side by side, and this time it's James in the McLaren able to make the move stick on the Haas. No DRS now, as that has been disabled, as Husky able to overtake Formula Jonah. But James moving up into P3 and able to make that move stick, as Jim not able to defend. As Viperize, right, I forgot about that. Viperize was spun by one of the Aston Martin cars into turn 1. So certainly a very, very risky gamble when you make a move or you are defending the turn 1, because that's something that can happen a lot of the time. But from 8th down, so we have all those drivers setting intermediate tires as we have James continuing to stay out on these medium tires. Elgem now will put on intermediates and will come out as Formula Jonah also dives into the pit lane, but Elgem, as one of our leaders, will be coming into fit intermediates. Bamboo Vegas seems to be managing fairly well on these hard tires, not quite potentially at an overlap at a point in the race where he can make up a ton of time, but certainly going to be interesting to watch how the conditions continue as Duncan as well comes into the pit lane. But it's currently Crooner leading the way as Viperize receives a 3-second time penalty. That's a yellow flag. I want to say that's T34 and Viperize battling there as Duncan and Speedy Gunner and Alexis Beast all nose to tail now. Coming up the hill into turn 3, it looks to be the AlphaTauri looking around the outside, not quite able to make the move stick on the Alfa Romeo. A little bit of contact between the two, as the Alfa Romeo a little bit of slow off the corner may be causing that. But as we have our leader of Crooner now finally diving into the pit lane, and he will also be setting the hard tires. So our two leaders opting to keep slick tires on for the moment as we start lap number 21. And it will be Crooner leading the way almost assuredly as they come out. Elgin might be able to make some time up on those inters. We'll see if they work out. But going to have to keep an eye on the battle there. So Dodaligo, the only driver not to pit yet, currently sitting in third. Everybody has boxed for inters with the exceptions of Crooner and Bamboo Vegas as Omega and Jim once again battle, but this time it's on pit exit, and Omega once again able to overtake Jim through this pit stop phase. It's now a McLaren 5-6 after they both started towards the back of the order. The two Haas cars as well doing fairly nicely in P4 and 7 as Elgem overtakes Crooner for the lead of the race. That gap was much larger just a couple seconds ago, and it's currently the Mercedes now in the lead. Could those hard tires have been a massive mistake for Crooner and Bamboo Vegas as Elgem showing a lot of pace on these intermediate tires, already a second and a half clear as the rain, I believe, is continuing to get worse. So all these intermediate tire runners made the perfect choice, it seems, as Crooner and Bamboo Vegas seem to have made a massive mistake in switching to hard tires. As the gap already 2.2 seconds now. So Elgin potentially just setting up his car perfectly for these changeable conditions now leads this race for Mercedes. As Dodaligo as well is going to gamble and go to medium tires. So it's going to be very interesting to watch his lap times and how they continue. As we come now down this final DRS straight. 4 seconds already is the gap from Elgem to Crooner. So Elgem is absolutely flying on these intermediates. As Speedy Gunner and Dodaligo battle side by side, the Aston Martin looking to the inside now as they come into turn 4, turn 3 rather, very slow, but the Alfa Romeo able to get great traction as the one Aston Martin seems to lose it under traction and falls back into 10th on those medium tires, so very much struggling. So it seems that the slicks are becoming undrivable as the gap at the front now up to 6 seconds for Elgem. So the Mercedes on those intermediate tires seems to be absolutely running away with this up at the front as Crooner now receives a 3-second time penalty for track limits. And just to give a quick update on those penalties, it's 3 seconds all down the order except for Zercity at 9. So it's going to be definitely important, depending on how this race continues, to keep on watching this. But if you're just joining us or just rejoining us, changeable conditions here in Austria have really shooken up the order as we see Speedy Gunner and Alexis Beast battle side by side, and will be Speedy Gunner holding position for the moment. But it's Bamboo Vegas led for a number of laps before the rain started to fall. Took a gamble to switch to hards on his pit stop. That hasn't worked, especially after an issue at the pit entry, as he has now been overtaken by James, who has moved up into the podium places. So those hards really just aren't working on either Crooner or James's cars, and they're gonna have to box or risk spinning out of this race as Bamboo Vegas getting very close to Omega now. Those hard tires are done. Those hard tires just will not work on this Haas as there's tons of wheel spin all over the place. I'm surprised Crooner isn't coming in already. I'd expect to see Bamboo Vegas in this lap, and we will. But currently, the championship leader! The championship leader is around! So he's going to fall right down the order. And look, this is a dream day for McLaren. They're currently sitting in P2 and P3. So a great day for McLaren in these changeable conditions. They've called it perfectly, and it's been utter horror for Bamboo Vegas, Crooner, and Dodaligo, all of whom took the gamble to switch to slicks instead of going straight to intermediates. But it's Elgin way at the front. 16 seconds separates him from the cars behind with just about 12 laps to go as we cross the line. So he should absolutely run away with this race now that he's gotten this far out in front. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see Omega and Jim once again, as well as Speedy Gunner and Alexis Beast. Looks like the Alfa Romeo may be pushing the AlphaTauri a little bit tight to the inside and onto the grass. But it seems to be all fair. But certainly as they continue to battle here, it's certainly going to be very interesting to watch how the rest of this race continues. James losing already 17.5 seconds back of Elgem as Alexis Beast able to make the move up the inside of Speedy Gunner into these final two corners. What a move from the AlphaTauri car. That Alfa Romeo going to be looking to the outside as they run down into turn 1. And it's Speedy Gunner looking to the outside. He's ahead by just about a length and is able to get the move done into turn 1. So a decent, solid move from the Alfa Romeo, able to take that place back as Crooner finally comes into the pit lane and is going to start battling with Bamboo Vegas for P9. So certainly not the way I think they saw this race panning out for either of them, as first and third in the championship now sit 9 and 10th, and it's the second place sitter in the championship, Elgem, leading the way by about 17 seconds now as we start lap number 26. So 11 laps to go here in Austria. Of course, intermediate conditions going to prove to be very challenging for these drivers as they continue. Yellow flag, that is, I believe, Dodaligo on those medium tires. Definitely a gamble from the Aston Martin, but it just has not gone his way, and he's probably going to have to come in this lap after the spin. But just so much spray being kicked up there as Xerxity and Viperize battle side by side, and as Viperize is able to hold the position from the Red Bull, who spun out. Can he keep the car moving? I think just about. He's very lucky to escape that with his car still intact. But no safety car for that Twitch as Jim and Omega seem to be continuing to get closer to battle as Speedy Gunner on the inside of Alexis Beast. They go side by side now through turn 3. That AlphaTauri going to have better traction on the exit. Probably the spot you want to be as well in these wetter conditions because it gives you the outside on the exit here. A little bit of banging there. Can the AlphaTauri look for the cutback? No, it's going to be blocked off. As is that Crooner around? No, it's Xerxity around at the end of Sector 3. Looking to get back underway. But certainly seems to be a little bit of a mistake from Elgem up at the front as they look to navigate that back marker there. But Speedy Gunner, Alexis Beast, and Duncan certainly the battle to watch as of right now. These three cars by the closest battle on track, with the three of them separated by only about 3 or 4 tenths as they come through these final couple of corners. Right up on the gearbox is that AlphaTauri now looking to the outside as they run now down into turn 1. It will be Alfa Romeo able to hold position for now. Contact as the Aston Martin looks to the inside and has to cut the curb in order to make it work. Almost 3 wide for a second. As cars all over the place there. They come now up into turn number 3. The AlphaTauri looking around the outside of Speedy Gunner, but not able to make the move stick. A little bit more contact there, as it looks like the Aston Martin falling off just a little bit. But certainly Those cars spending all of their ERS as Jim and Omega battling once again as they did for so many laps early on in the massive DRS train during this race. Certainly the gap got very close there into turn 4, but it seems that Omega was able to hold on. So a double podium for McLaren could be a great result. If you'll just give me a sec to pull up the constructors standings. I believe that would be a great showing. So McLaren looking to really secure a P5 and potentially chase after Williams in P4. So they're currently sitting on 78 points in P5, but it's a very tight battle for that P5. So a double podium would be great, as we see Jim looking to the inside now. Not quite able to make the move stick on Omega. Going to tuck back into the slipstream and look into the inside, into the braking zone, but not able to get enough done as Omega able to hopefully get a nice enough exit, but it seems that Haas just gets a mega exit there out of that turn and is going to move up into P3. So Omega is going to look to have to keep in touch with the Haas car throughout the rest of this race, with just about 9 laps to go, as Viperize is the next to receive a penalty now. Also looking down the order, the battle between Speedy Gunner, Alexis Beast, and Duncan for P5 continues to go on. Of course, all the drivers there with penalties, as we see Bamboo Vegas and Crooner also doing battle for just 2 points, but it could be 2 very important points, depending on how it comes down for position. Of course, these 2 drivers at the top of towards the top of our drivers' standings, but could be could be very important to get those points, as Alexis Beast and Speedy Gunner and Duncan all battle. Did Speedy Gunner with I believe a mistake there in those final couple of corners, and just loses it there. So big mistake, as I believe the rain has also stopped falling, it seems. So it seems to be getting close to dry conditions. Husky is going to fit soft tires to potentially try and steal a fastest lap or maybe more as these conditions start to dry. So the chaos might not be over yet, as L-Jam will dive into the pit lane for slick tires, as well as C34 and Jonah. Of course, L-Jam well up at the front, so he'll be able to have some time to nicely fit those soft tires and still come out in the lead. What will James do? James will come into the pits. Jim and Omega behind. What will they elect to do here on lap number 29? Jim will stay out. Omega will follow his teammate into the pit lane for a set of soft tires. As they pit now, there goes Jim just past. So it looks to be a double stack for McLaren. How well can it go? Maybe a little bit slower for that second McLaren car, but certainly very solid, and he should come out very nicely. Duncan, Alexis Beast, and Speedy Gunner, as well as Crooner and Bamboo Vegas, all diving into the pit lane. So how much time can Husky gain in all of this with all those cars in the pit lane? If you're just rejoining us, it's the track has continued to now dry up as the race continues to draw towards a close. And now we have drivers all fitting soft tires, starting with the Ferrari of Husky 13, who seems to be a massive winner here, as he's already moved up into P6 after this pit stop phase. He wasn't well behind, but he was certainly behind enough to lose a fair amount of time. Jim now, the last driver on the intermediates with 7 laps to go. And these soft tires, certainly quicker, as DRS has now been enabled, and the Haas will finally go back into the pit lane. So it could a mega strategy call from the McLaren team of James and Omega now put them back into a double podium. Excuse me. I'm running out of vocal cords a little bit. But Jim now into the pit lane for a set of hard tires, rather. That's a major surprise. So potentially that was the only set of new tires he had coming out of the pit lane now. How much separates him and Omega? It was about a second when Omega went into the pits, but a fair amount of time lost from that pit stop meant that Jim has about a second gap as it stands right now. So as they come up the hill, of course, Jim, one of the only 2 drivers with the Haas's, being the only drivers currently without penalties. So that could be very interesting in their battles to move up the grid. but it's Elgem leading very comfortably with about a 17-second gap up at the front for a very solid race. There's a purple sector 3 as we start lap number 32. But James, with a great recovery drive in second, just quickly taking a look at the position changes, up 13 positions. So from pretty much the back of the grid, now up into P2, and setting the fastest lap of the race for McLaren. Jim and Omega big gainers up 7 and 9 positions, as well as Duncan also up 7 positions. So a lot of great strategy calls in that top 5 has led to great results for them. Husky, of course, started P4 in this race, dropped down really early, but with a great call to switch to softs, now sits in P6, and is very nicely as Jim and Omega side by side, a little bit of banging there, that Haas able to hold position. As the rear lights flashing in both of those cars, the Haas defends the outside, certainly well within his rights to do so, as Elgem sets a 107.1, which gives him that bonus point for the moment. Also looking on the order, it's Speedy Gunner on the Lexus Beast again, as they come up the hill, or as they come down the hill, rather. And it's the Alfa Tauri looking to the inside now of the Alfa Romeo, and he's able to make that move stick with a brilliant little exit there. The Alfa Romeo thinking about going to the inside, but thinking better of it, and it's a Lexus Beast up into P7 for Alfa Tauri as Zercity receives a 3-second time penalty. We're taking a look at the front, Jim and Omega as they come through turn 1 now. We've seen these two battle for almost the entirety of this race, as it's gone back and forth between the McLaren and the Haas. First it was for about P5, then it was for P4, and now it's to determine which of these two drivers sits on the podium, an extra helping of DRS for the McLaren. Can he use that to get past and potentially start lengthening that gap? Not quite, so it seems that Haas just a little bit too quick in a straight line, and able to use those medium tires just well enough as yellow flag in Sector 2. That's a big chaos. That's Husky spun round. Was there contact between the Ferrari and some other cars? So a great strategy call from Husky has gone to nothing after potentially a massive mistake, or maybe even some contact for the Ferrari car, has now left him battling for the last of the point-scoring positions, and he's going to have to defend now from Dodo Ligo in P11, who's really risked and has stayed on those medium tires since he pitted off the hards on his one-stop. So Husky's going to be looking to bring that point home, but it's still Elgem coming through Sector 2 now, just about 2 laps to go the next time he crosses the line. Also, Kruner in P8 as Viperize and Formula Jonas swap places a little bit down the order. Kruner looking to the inside of Speedy Gunner. He's going to push him all the way to the wall. Contact between the two cars. The Alfa Romeo is going to look back up the inside, but Kruner able to recover nicely up in the 7th, so the championship leader able to recover nicely. Omega and Jim battling again, as Jim able to get DRS after Omega tried to make a move on him into turn number 3 and is able to make that defense work. And he's going to only have to do that maybe 1 or 2 more times, and even then Omega might not be able to get up onto that podium, as we are now on lap number 35 here at a changeable Austria, which has provided us with a great race to be able to watch. Certainly the gaps up at the front wouldn't tell you that, with 17 seconds from Elgem to James, and then 16 seconds from James to Jim and his teammate of Omega. But it's certainly been a great race to be able to commentate, as there's been a ton to commentate over, as Omega receives a 3-second time penalty, so that's probably going to do it for that battle. Of course, they're still going to battle on track for that, but certainly it shouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But we now have Elgem coming through the penultimate corners for the second to last for the penultimate time, and starts now his final lap of this Austrian Grand Prix. So the final lap, and it's been a great race from Elgem. Perfect strategy calls when some of the drivers around him made poor decisions, and that would be Kruner and Bamboo Vegas up at the front, who made the decision to risk hard tires in definitely
weather that necessitated intermediates, and then just has run away with this race after making that brilliant strategy call. So it's been a great race, a great 36 laps from the Mercedes. James, certainly though, the driver of the day, in P2, well clear of any potential challengers, as Omega with another 3-second time penalty. If he gets any more, that could put him at risk from Duncan. Yellow flag in Sector 1. Is that Crooner round, or is that Zersity? That is Zersity, that is not Crooner, spinning out at turn number 1. But as he comes through the final couple of corners, it will be Elgem winning the Austrian Grand Prix for Mercedes, pulls to the right, and wins it. What a drive from the Mercedes to win a very challenging race. And keep that applause going for James 443 from I believe the back of the pack at the start. Gets kind of close to putting it into the wall there, but certainly a great showing from him as he comes home to finish in P2. Out of the final couple of corners, it will be the Haas of Jim on his LSR debut as Omega with a major time penalty. That's going to lose him a ton of time, but it will be Jim finishing P3. Omega for now P4. Duncan will power to the line and overtake him. Can Alexis Beast and Crooner potentially catch him? As they come to the line now, it's Alexis Beast. He's finishing 7th after penalties with Crooner in 5th. Actually, Alexis Beast in 9th. What just happened? Bamboo Vegas has jumped up into 5th place after penalties, so he finishes ahead of Crooner after penalties. So great for Haas and very solid for McLaren. So Bamboo Vegas ending up finishing ahead of Crooner after both making that mistake, and Husky and Dodaligo finish out the points. So your order: Elgem from James and Jim and for Haas. Duncan in that Aston Martin finishing P4 with Bamboo Vegas and Haas finishing P5. For P6, it is Crooner in the Red Bull, so the championship leader definitely with a big struggle there, but certainly going to be happy to get whatever points he could. But a great race. Great to see Elliott win. James, though, certainly the driver of the day here at Austria, picking up 13 places in the race today. As we can see Elgem coming through the tunnel now to the podium for the celebration. As you can see, Mercedes, McLaren, and Haas drivers of P1, 2, and 3. So great race from all of them. Elliott to dominate, to take the win. James, the clear driver of the day. And then Jim with some great battles with Omega earlier on in this race. Very entertaining for the two of them. And Jim, on his debut, scores a podium here in Group 2 of LSR. But certainly a great race. And it's the Brits of Elgem and James finishing P1 and P2 for Mercedes and McLaren. So great results for them. Jim, the Swede, for Haas, finishing in P3 with the Portuguese driver of Duncan finishing P4 for Aston Martin after starting P12. The top two of Bamboo Vegas and Crooner finishing P5 and P6 after making the poor strategy call to switch to hard tires instead of to intermediates. Crooner also picks up that fastest lap point, which will go towards his championship chase. Omega, after making a major mistake at the final corner, getting an extra 10 seconds worth of time penalty, so that he may improve from that P7 if he can get that removed, but certainly a decent showing at bare minimum for the McLaren driver. Speedy Gunner, the Canadian, finishing 8th for Alfa Romeo, with the Brit of Alexis Beast finishing 9th for AlphaTauri. Husky 13, the Dutchman, finishing P10 for Ferrari after making what seemed like a great strategy call, but just not being able to work it out at the end. And then Dodaligo, T34, Formula Jonah, Viperize, and finally Zersity round out your order. So if you're still here, definitely thank you for joining us. It was a very interesting race to watch, and if you're looking for
more league racing, I can give you two options for that. First, you can like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified when we go live next weekend for Group 1 and Group 2 at the Spanish Grand Prix. That's for both Group 1 and Group 2. Group 1 runs on Saturdays at the same time we do here. As well, Group 1 raced yesterday around Austria, so go give that a watch if you're looking for a bit more league racing. But once again, thank you for joining us, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Congratulations to Elgin, James, and Jim on their podiums, and I'll see you next time.